When Olivia de Havilland walked into court in 1943, she knew Hollywood would never forgive her. Her co-stars called her a traitor behind her back, and studio bosses spread lies about her to anyone who would listen. For almost 2 years, she couldn't find work. The price of standing up to Warner Brothers was losing almost every friend she had. This is the real story of how America's sweetheart became Hollywood's most hated woman. Olivia de Havilland was born on July 1, 1916, in Tokyo, Japan. Her parents, Lillian Augusta Roos and Walter Augustus de Havilland, were British. Her father was a professor and patent attorney, while her mother had once been an actress. A year later, Olivia's sister, Joan Fontaine, was born. The family lived in Tokyo's International District during a time when the world was still recovering from World War I. But everything changed in 1919 when Lillian discovered Walter's infidelity. She made the difficult decision to leave him and took both daughters to California, while Walter stayed behind in Japan and remained distant for most of their lives. They initially settled in San Francisco, then moved to Saratoga, a quieter town south of the city, where Lillian hoped the warmer weather would benefit her daughter's health. Olivia and Joan grew up without their father, a fact that deeply shaped their childhood. Even without him, Olivia showed early signs of determination. She loved reading and storytelling, small hints of the career that would one day define her. Their last name, de Havilland, came from the family's roots in Guernsey, a small island in the English Channel, and that British heritage gave Olivia a sense of identity as she found her way in America. In 1924, when Olivia was 8, Lillian remarried. Her new husband, George Milan Fontaine, was strict and believed in discipline, setting rigid rules and rarely showing affection. Olivia and Joan were forbidden from joining extracurricular activities, and Fontaine demanded complete obedience. When Olivia began acting in school plays, tensions escalated. Fontaine gave her an ultimatum: give up acting or leave home forever. At just 16, Olivia chose to leave and pursue acting on her own. She had already fallen in love with the stage at Los Gatos High School, performing in plays like Alice in Wonderland and The Merchant of Venice. Despite her stepfather's opposition, she never gave up. In 1933, something unexpected happened. Max Reinhardt, a renowned theater director, was producing A Midsummer Night's Dream at the Hollywood Bowl. Olivia was cast as an understudy for the role of Hermia. She was only 18, and it seemed like a small step, but when both the lead actress and original understudy dropped out, Olivia got her chance. Her performance captivated the audience, and more importantly, Reinhardt recognized her potential. Warner Brothers was turning A Midsummer Night's Dream into a film, and Reinhardt insisted Olivia be cast. The studio agreed and signed her to a 7-year contract in 1934, starting at $200 per week, a fortune for a teenage newcomer. The film, released in 1935, was Olivia's big break. She starred alongside James Cagney and Dick Powell, already established stars, but Olivia's natural screen presence made her stand out. Her true breakthrough came later that year in Captain Blood, a bold move by Warner Brothers during the Great Depression. The studio took a risk by casting 2 relatively unknown actors, de Havilland and Errol Flynn, in lead roles. She played Arabella Bishop, the spirited niece of a Jamaican plantation owner, opposite Flynn's Peter Blood, an Irish doctor who becomes a pirate. Filming took place from August to October 1935, and when the film premiered on December 28, it was a hit, earning 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture. The film introduced de Havilland's charm and elegance to the world, making her a rising star. Her chemistry with Flynn was undeniable, and together they became one of Hollywood's most beloved on-screen duos, starring in 8 films together. Their next major success came with The Adventures of Robin Hood in 1938, a Technicolor spectacle filmed between September 1937 and January 1938. De Havilland played Maid Marian, a role that could have been just another damsel in distress, but she made Marian brave and intelligent, willing to risk everything to help Robin Hood and his men. The film premiered on May 14 and cemented her status as a true Hollywood icon. The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, became an instant classic and earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture. But despite the film's success, Olivia de Havilland felt increasingly trapped. Her roles were always the same, the elegant love interest standing beside a heroic man. While audiences adored her in these parts, she longed for more. She wanted characters with depth, women who didn't just support the story, but drove it forward. That opportunity finally came with Gone with the Wind, 1939. Warner Brothers loaned her to producer David O. Selznick, allowing her to play Melanie Hamilton, a major departure from her usual glamorous roles. Melanie wasn't flashy or impulsive, but she had a quiet strength that made her unforgettable. Filming began in January 1939 under director Victor Fleming, after George Cukor was replaced. De Havilland worked alongside Vivien Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara and Clark Gable as Rhett Butler. While Leigh's fiery performance dominated the screen, Olivia's portrayal of Melanie brought heart and resilience, transforming her into far more than just Scarlett's gentle friend. When the film premiered on December 15, 1939, at Loew's Grand Theater in Atlanta, it became one of the most successful movies in history. De Havilland earned her first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. The award ultimately went to her co-star, Hattie McDaniel, who made history as the first African-American Oscar winner. Still, Olivia's nomination proved she was more than a supporting love interest. Melanie became a turning point, requiring subtlety and emotional depth rather than just beauty and grace. The roles showed Olivia what she was capable of, and what had been missing in her career. She no longer wanted to be the sweet girl in male-driven films, she wanted complex, challenging characters. But Warner Brothers wasn't interested in change. They continued offering her the same roles, and she had finally had enough. If she wanted something different, she would have to fight for it. In 1943, Olivia de Havilland changed Hollywood forever by suing Warner Brothers. At the time, actors had very little control over their careers. Studios signed them to long-term contracts and decided what roles they could accept. De Havilland had been under contract since 1936, originally for 1 year. But Warner Brothers kept extending it through a clause known as suspension, which paused the contract anytime she refused a role or became ill, making it nearly impossible to reach the contract's end. By 1943, she had served 7 years, but the studio claimed she still owed them time. On August 23, 1943, she filed a lawsuit against the studio, citing California Labor Code Section 2855, which stated that no personal services contract could exceed 7 years. Her argument was simple: suspensions shouldn't override that legal limit. If she won, it would set a groundbreaking precedent. The legal battle dragged on for over a year. Warner Brothers tried everything to silence her. They blacklisted her, sent warnings to other studios, and attempted to destroy her reputation. But Olivia refused to back down. On December 8, 1944, the California Court of Appeal ruled in her favor. The decision stated that 7 years meant 7 calendar years, not 7 years of active work interrupted by suspensions. The ruling became known as the de Havilland Law, and it shattered the studio's power to trap actors in endless contracts. The victory, however, came at a cost. De Havilland spent $113,000 in legal fees, equivalent to about $230,000 today, and was out of work for nearly 2 years. Many believed her career was finished. But in 1946 she proved them wrong. Signing with Paramount Pictures, she starred in To Each His Own, a performance that earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress. In just one film, she went from blacklisted to Oscar winner. 3 years later, she won another Academy Award for The Heiress, a role that showcased her emotional depth and dramatic power. In between, she starred in The Snake Pit, one of Hollywood's earliest films to address mental illness, earning her another Oscar nomination and solidifying her place as one of the era's finest actresses. Olivia de Havilland's legal battle made her a hero to countless actors trapped in unfair contracts. Even her sister, actress Joan Fontaine, once admitted, "Hollywood owes Olivia a great deal." But not everyone saw her as a hero. Studio executives labeled her a troublemaker. Jack Warner, who had once tried to crush her career, never forgave her. Some in Hollywood never forgave Olivia de Havilland for what she had done. She was called spoiled, and many actors distanced themselves from her, afraid of angering the studios. But in the end, she had changed Hollywood. Between 1935 and 1941, de Havilland and Errol Flynn became one of the greatest on-screen duos in film history, starring in 8 films together. Their chemistry was so powerful that audiences believed their romance had to be real. Flynn, the charismatic Australian actor, was instantly drawn to de Havilland when they met at Warner Brothers in 1935. He was 26, confident and charming. She was 19, graceful and warm. Their first film, Captain Blood, proved they had something special, and the adventures of Robin Hood 3 years later made them legends. Off-screen, their relationship was complicated. De Havilland admitted she had feelings for Flynn but refused to act on them, knowing he was married to actress Lily Damita. Flynn, however, had no problem confessing his love. At a grand ball in 1937 held for the coronation of King George VI, he told her how much he wanted to be with her. She turned him down, urging him to resolve his marriage first, but he never did. Years later, in his autobiography, he wrote that he had loved her deeply. When de Havilland read those words, she was surprised but touched. Even decades after Flynn's death in 1959, she admitted their connection was never insignificant. That unspoken love made their films even more magnetic. In the beginning, they had mutual respect, but as time passed, tensions grew. De Havilland became frustrated with always playing the romantic lead in Flynn's swashbuckling films. She wanted roles with depth, but Warner Brothers continued to pair them together. Her fight for better opportunities led to clashes with the studio, and sometimes with Flynn himself. His behavior only added to the strain. Known for his drinking, partying, and frequent pranks, Flynn sometimes directed them at de Havilland. During scene together was emotionally powerful. As General Custer, Flynn looked into her eyes and said, "Walking through life with you, ma'am, has been a very gracious thing." The words weren't just scripted, they carried weight, signaling the end of their on-screen partnership and perhaps something deeper. Olivia de Havilland's love life was as complex as her film roles. One of the most surprising moments came when she turned down a marriage proposal from Jimmy Stewart, one of Hollywood's most beloved actors. Their relationship had charmed the press, especially after he took her to the Gone with the Wind premiere in 1939. Many thought they would marry, but when he proposed in the late 1930s or early 1940s, she said no. She doubted he was truly ready for commitment. What the public didn't know was that de Havilland had already fallen for someone else, director John Huston, whom she met in 1941 during the filming of In This Our Life. Unlike Stewart, Huston was sharp, rebellious, and had a reputation as a womanizer. He was also married. That didn't stop them from having an affair. De Havilland admired his intellect and wit, and they bonded over a shared love of art and literature. But the relationship was unstable. Huston's personal life was chaotic, and his romantic past full of complications. Turning down Stewart didn't just shape her personal life, it impacted her career too. In 1946, she was offered the role of Mary Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, but she declined. The idea of working with Stewart so soon after their breakup was too painful. That same year, Stewart earned an Oscar nomination for the film, while de Havilland won her first Academy Award for To Each His Own. Her love life, like her films, continued to capture public fascination. In 1946, Olivia de Havilland married Marcus Goodrich, a novelist best known for his book Delilah. But the marriage quickly began to unravel. She later learned through newspapers that Goodrich had been married 4 times before her. Their relationship became toxic, marked by emotional and physical abuse. One of the most shocking incidents occurred when Goodrich, in a rage over being served beef steak pie instead of steak and kidney pie, hurled the dish across the room. For years, she endured his unpredictable outbursts. In 1953, after seeking guidance from her minister, she finally filed for divorce, prioritizing her safety and the well-being of their young son, Benjamin. Her second marriage appeared more promising. In 1955, she wed Pierre Galanti, a French journalist and editor for Paris Match. De Havilland moved to Paris and later wrote a humorous memoir, Every Frenchman Has One, chronicling her efforts to adapt to French culture. They had a daughter named Giselle, and for a time, life seemed idyllic. However, by 1962, the couple had separated. Instead of divorcing immediately, they remained legally married for 17 more years, officially ending the union in 1979. Despite the separation, they remained close, and when Galanti became ill, de Havilland cared for him until his death in 1998. Her move to Paris in 1955 marked a bold shift in both her personal and professional life. Leaving Hollywood behind, she settled in a quiet, 3-story home near the Bois de Boulogne. This relocation was more than just a lifestyle change, it signified a new phase in her career. Free from the relentless demands of the film industry, she became selective about her roles, choosing projects that matched her artistic vision. One of her standout performances during this period came in 1964 with Hush, Sweet Charlotte, a psychological thriller directed by Robert Aldrich. Initially, Joan Crawford had been cast opposite Bette Davis, but behind-the-scenes tensions and illness forced Crawford to leave the project. De Havilland stepped in, transforming the role of Miriam with elegance and chilling restraint. The film was a hit, earning 7 Academy Award nominations. Her portrayal added a new layer to her acting legacy, moving beyond romantic heroines to complex characters filled with nuance and menace. Life in Paris offered more than professional freedom. She embraced European culture, became fluent in French, and regularly attended major events like the Cannes Film Festival. She was no longer bound by Hollywood's rigid structures and timelines. Instead, she shaped her own career. As the film industry shifted in the 1970s, favoring younger actresses, de Havilland adapted. She turned to television and theater, finding fresh ways to showcase her talent. In 1986, she played Dowager Empress Maria Fyodorovna in Anastasia, The Mystery of Anna, a TV miniseries that earned her critical acclaim. Television allowed her to explore dramatic and historical roles no longer offered to older women in Hollywood. She also returned to her first love, the stage. In the 1950s, she had performed on Broadway in Romeo and Juliet and Candida, proving her range beyond film. In the later years of her career, theater gave her an intimate connection with audiences and creative fulfillment. This shift to stage and screen wasn't just a professional evolution, it also gave her more time with family. Life in Paris provided stability, as she raised Benjamin and Giselle. While many of her peers struggled to balance fame and family, de Havilland managed to do both. Even after retiring from acting in the late 1980s, her legacy only continued to grow. In 2017, at the remarkable age of 101, Olivia de Havilland received one of the greatest honors of her lifetime when Queen Elizabeth II named her Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire, making her the oldest recipient of the title. She called it the most gratifying birthday present, as it came just days before her 101st birthday. Due to her age, she couldn't travel to London for the official ceremony, so the honor was presented at the British Embassy in Paris. Over the years, she received many other prestigious awards. In 2008, President George W. Bush awarded her the National Medal of Arts for her contributions to American culture, and in 2010, French President Nicolas Sarkozy honored her with the Legion of Honor, recognizing her lasting impact on cinema and her adopted country. These awards reflected a lifetime of achievement, not just as an actress, but as a cultural icon. However, Olivia's personal life, particularly her relationship with her sister Joan Fontaine, was marked by a deep and bitter rivalry. Born just 15 months apart, both sisters rose to fame during Hollywood's golden age, each earning critical acclaim and winning Academy Awards. Rather than drawing them closer, their similarities only fueled resentment. Their feud, which lasted nearly a century, became one of the most infamous in Hollywood history. Their troubles began in childhood, when Joan believed their mother favored Olivia, leaving her to feel like the perpetual second choice. Their fights were often intense. Olivia was said to have torn Joan's hand-me-down clothes, and in one incident, even broke her collarbone during an argument by a pool. When Joan decided to pursue acting, their mother insisted she change her name to avoid competition with Olivia. She adopted Fontaine, the surname of their stepfather, but the change only deepened her sense of alienation. The rivalry spilled into the public in 1942, when they became the first siblings in history to be nominated against each other for the Best Actress Oscar, Olivia for Hold Back the Dawn, and Joan for Suspicion. Joan won, but when Olivia attempted to congratulate her, Joan ignored her, leaving Olivia humiliated. 5 years later, when Olivia won her own Oscar for To Each His Own, she returned the gesture by walking past Joan's extended hand without acknowledgement. The feud continued for decades, with only fleeting moments of reconciliation. In the 1960s, they were seen together at a few Hollywood events, but their bond was never truly repaired. Joan later reflected on their rivalry in her autobiography, writing, "I married first, won the Oscar before Olivia did, and if I die first, she'll undoubtedly be livid because I beat her to it." When Joan passed away in 2013 at the age of 96, Olivia, then 97, released a short statement expressing sadness, and claimed she had never been the one to start the hostility. One of the most painful chapters in their feud occurred in 1975 when their mother passed away. Olivia, taking control of the funeral arrangements while Joan was away on tour, finalized everything, including cremation, before Joan was even informed. Joan was furious, saying she learned of her mother's death from a third party and not from her sister. The two didn't speak at the funeral. Their relationship deteriorated further when Joan discovered her daughter had secretly stayed in contact with Olivia. Feeling betrayed, Joan distanced herself from her own children. Olivia, for her part, always insisted that she had acted out of love. Olivia de Havilland admitted that she had been defensive at times, acknowledging that her rivalry with her sister Joan Fontaine wasn't just personal, it followed them throughout their careers. Neither relied on family connections to succeed, and both worked hard to build their own reputations. Yet they often competed for the same roles, and even their personal lives became entangled in the feud. When Joan married actor Brian Aherne, who had previously dated Olivia, many saw it as a calculated move meant to provoke her sister. Decades later, in 2017, de Havilland found herself in another battle, this time with FX Networks and Ryan Murphy Productions, over her portrayal in the miniseries feud, Bet and Joan, which centered on the legendary rivalry between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Catherine Zeta-Jones played de Havilland, who was 101 years old at the time and known as one of Hollywood's most dignified and respected figures. However, the show depicted her as someone who spread gossip and made cruel remarks about others. In one scene, she was shown calling her sister an expletive, a word she insisted she had never used. She had actually referred to Joan as a dragon lady, a term she felt was far less malicious. De Havilland filed a lawsuit, arguing that FX had used her name and likeness without permission and inserted false scenes, including a fabricated interview at the 1978 Academy Awards. Having spent a lifetime avoiding Hollywood gossip, she felt the series unfairly tarnished her legacy. Her lawyers warned that such portrayals, if left unchecked, could threaten the reputations of other public figures. The case gained national attention and in 2018 reached the California Court of Appeal, where the judges ruled in favor of FX. The court found that feud was protected under the First Amendment as a creative work that dramatized historical events rather than strictly adhering to facts. The ruling set an important legal precedent, confirming that public figures cannot control how they are depicted in dramatized media. For de Havilland, the loss was deeply disappointing. In March 2018, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to review the case, ending her legal fight and ordering her to pay FX's legal fees. While some viewed the decision as a victory for artistic freedom, others believed it left celebrities vulnerable to misleading portrayals. De Havilland believed the ruling ignored her rights and posed a risk to others in the public eye. On July 26, 2020, Olivia de Havilland passed away peacefully in her sleep at her home in Paris. She died of natural causes at the age of 104, marking the end of an era. Tributes poured in from around the world. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences called her an immeasurable talent, while actor Jared Leto described her as a class act who opened doors for so many. Her death was more than the loss of a legendary actress, it signaled the passing of one of the last remaining icons of Hollywood's golden age. But Olivia de Havilland was never just a star of the past. She was a fighter, a pioneer, and a woman who shaped the industry in extraordinary ways. Through her films, her groundbreaking legal victories, and her enduring spirit, she continues to inspire generations of actors and audiences alike.